We're going to turn to Dawn now at Bridges. So we've heard a lot already in the conversation this morning about many of the challenges that crisis centers and survivors are experiencing. And I would love to spend some time thinking about how can community members support your program and crisis centers throughout the state? What can we do? What can every citizen in New Hampshire do to be supportive of crisis centers? And as part of that, can you just talk a little bit about ways that folks can help other individuals if they think that there's abuse happening right now and a survivor may not be reaching out or may not be able to reach out?
Absolutely. Thank you, Lynn. My colleagues covered so many good points. I'm going to try to supplement those with some of the situations that we're having across the state. One of the things that I think that you mentioned, Lynn, is that we are really interdependent on each other. And as far as our communities, what we're seeing, everybody I think spoke to the fact that our numbers were down in the beginning. And because of the pandemic, we're not getting the referrals, or survivors are not having access to services that they normally would. So they're not going to a dentist's office or their OBGYN or a doctor. Therapy, while many therapists have moved to telehealth, it's not that in-person kind of advocacy. And we find that many survivors are not very comfortable with the telehealth piece of it. So we're not getting as many referrals from therapists. And in turn, survivors aren't getting the support that they need from therapists. Schools, we used to get many, many referrals from teachers. Kids in high school, we'd go in and do prevention education and we get referrals that way. So we're not getting the referrals. Somebody mentioned the child advocacy centers earlier. And in the past, before all of this happened, Bridges would accompany 2 to 3 families a day at our local child advocacy center if there was suspected child sexual abuse or serious domestic violence. We've had 2 calls and 2 interviews in the last 4 to 6 weeks. That's a significant decrease. And while others have talked about it, I'm very concerned about what's going to happen when people start having access to services and being able to get the help that they need, and the numbers go back to 2 or 3 times a day. And when will that happen, and how will we manage? Other nonprofits, we're not getting the referrals from other nonprofits. Many housing programs are not accepting new people, which limits the ability for survivors to go out and find and access the support that they need and housing that they need, which is, I think, one of the biggest things that Bridges is seeing is that people are kind of trapped in the situation that they're in, or feel very much like they're trapped. And so with all of these referral sources being more limited, one of the things that we're really stressing is domestic and sexual violence is not just an issue for the crisis centers, it's a community issue. And with limited contact to survivors, that makes your role even more important as a community member. So if you are seeing something or you're suspecting something, the crisis centers are all still available 24/7. We are available anytime, day or night, weekends, it doesn't matter. And advocates are really willing to answer those calls and provide any support that is needed. One of the things that I constantly say is that crisis center advocates are some of the most adaptable, resilient, creative problem solvers that I've ever met in my life. And they are able to think outside the box. And when we go to a pandemic, they're able to say, I got this. I can do support groups online. I can take calls from home. I'll add a chat feature to the services that we provide. And I'm willing to do that anytime. And I'm going to do texting. And we've been giving survivors phones. That's another piece that we're finding is access to telephones, or even the time to be able to call. They used to be able, survivors would go to the grocery store, or they'd go to work, or they'd go to a friend's house, or they'd go outside. It is limiting their ability to reach out. So we're trying to adapt to any way possible. If you make a referral to a support center, one of the things that you'll find, again, I can't say it enough, is that we're available 24/7. And to assure survivors that we are available 24/7, and that our services are completely confidential, And while we're in a pandemic, we can still help. We've received money from the governor, as you all know, to support folks in hotels if we need to. While that is more challenging than supporting somebody in a shelter, right now, Bridges, for example, is supporting 6 families in local hotels. So we are still here. We're still able to provide that emergency housing. We can do it, and we are willing to do it. We also have seen a decrease in landlords renting to folks. So I would encourage you, if you know anybody who has rental properties, to either reach out to a crisis center or to make those available. I think we have folks in shelter, or we have folks in hotels that are ready to move on, and we have some support for them to move on to permanent housing, and there's nothing available. They're not able to find anything. So that makes our shelter stays longer and our hotel stays longer. So reaching out to people that you might know, or people that you suspect might be having issues, and providing support to them and giving them referrals to the local crisis centers. Also, we've been really blessed, and I would encourage, this is a way to also help, is to provide your local crisis center with things like cleaning supplies, masks. We have had a fair amount of people make masks for the local crisis centers, or disposable masks, gloves. Lysol disinfecting spray is not, if you have some, we would really love some. Anything that could really help us to keep our facilities clean. Bridges is in the position that we do have people in the office. We're rotating how many people are in the office and staying 6 feet apart and doing all the cleaning measures. So we have had appointments. Other crisis centers do not have access to this, but it depends on your local community. But we have had people come into our office in emergency situations and work closely with them, with other community providers. We advocates are thinking outside the box, and we're protecting survivors. We're going and working really closely with our local food pantries and our local soup kitchens, and advocates are picking up food and delivering it to folks in our shelter. Our transportation, we normally have pretty robust city transportation, which is very limited right now. Our taxis are very limited. So helping people with transportation is something. So we have gotten gift cards for Uber or gas stations. That kind of thing has been helpful and would be helpful. The biggest thing that we're struggling with, and Deb Weinstein touched on this quite a bit, is fundraising. My organization, for example, has to raise approximately $300,000 a year in order to just operate. That's not extra money. That's not, it's just to keep our doors open and to keep staff working. And so canceling those fundraisers has been a significant issue for all of the crisis centers in the state. And we're looking forward to next year as well, and how this will impact our budgets next year, and how many staff that we're able to employ, and how many services we'll be able to provide. So that's another way, and you've all been supportive, and I would encourage that continued support of all the crisis centers. We truly greatly appreciate it. And we're staying strong, and thanks to all of you for your care and concern. And all the crisis centers would be willing to talk further if anybody has any issues they want to reach out about, or ways that they want to help. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dawn. And I think one of the things that your comments highlight is that every crisis center has different resources available in their community. So for folks who are on the phone who are interested in supporting your crisis center, definitely reach out and find out what their most pressing needs are, because that can vary by community. And it's most helpful to the crisis centers to be able to tell you what they may need at that